Would you trust information that comes from a book more than you would that comes off Google or Wikipedia?
Well, I think it's about cross-checking things. So, a book, depending who has written it, depending on when it was written, it can have very valuable information. It can be completely crap. Same as a newspaper. People say that the crap you have on television or in newspapers or whatever. Yeah, sure. There's a lot of crap. But there are also good things. Sometimes, and you actually can, the best measurement is that you think, I didn't know that. I learned something. That's interesting. So, Wikipedia in general, it's a little bit like, how would you say it? A boring encyclopedia. So I think people who see Wikipedia as, let's say, the new age or the new epoch and everything accessible and those kind of things. I think it's just another tool that is available. So in general you cannot say whatever, people from America are this or that. In general you cannot say the information from books is good or bad. You have terrible books, you have fantastic books. And that also depends on how much you know about it. If you hardly know anything about Zimbabwe, for instance, in Africa, and you read a book about it, and you think, wow, it's amazing, what a writer, and it really makes me want to visit that place and those kind of things. Then you meet a guy who grew up in Zimbabwe, and you tell him the story, oh, I read this book about Zimbabwe, and it's amazing. And this guy says, this is a terrible book. There's no representation at all. I sometimes use the example of, and people sometimes react to me if I say, oh, I have 2 design teams in Afghanistan. Afghanistan? Is this, you still a lot of Taliban and Kalashnikov? So I said, listen to your question, huh? Can you imagine that you go to New York, you have a meeting at the UN, and afterwards you meet a couple of people, and they say, oh, Driti, where you come from? You say, I come from India. This American lady says to you, oh, nice, Bollywood, Shah Rukh Khan. Yeah, maybe you hate Shah Rukh Khan. Maybe you think Bollywood is the worst thing that ever happened to India. But you get a mark on your head because you're a Bollywoodie. Yeah? So I think that simplification of things is always there. And I think it's our job as, let's say, relatively educated people. I'm sure there are a few people smarter than us. But if you look as a percentage, you could say you're probably in the top 2-3% of the country. So that also brings, I think, a responsibility with it. That is that you filter knowledge. You kind of, if you read something in a newspaper, let's say a pretty bad newspaper, the Times of India, which is pretty crap, it doesn't mean that that is the truth. It is just a piece in a pretty bad newspaper. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not true. But it's up to your judgment and your cross-references, be it an uncle who's smart, or be it Wikipedia, or be it whatever, to actually find out whether this is rubbish or not. I hope your uncle is not working with the Times of India.
Do you think plagiarism has increased with the coming in of the internet?
Yes, of course.
Would you, if as an architect, if you have designed something, would you feel comfortable making that information accessible via the internet?
Sure.
Or
Yeah.
Even when you know that plagiarism is common?
It has always happened. I mean, look at what the British did. Or this guy Lutyens, yeah? Celebrated architect of Delhi. I think he was a very mediocre architect. He did some postmodern classical stuff, whatever. And he's the big Lutyens Delhi, whatever. I think it's great that he had the idea of building a couple of big roads with great trees. But if you look at the architecture and the development of architecture in history, Lutyens Delhi is okay-ish. Yeah? I'm much more worried about institutes like ASI who don't give a shit about the monuments that you have. Yeah, they have this rule and they put a big ad in the newspaper. Nothing can be built within 100 meters from... Yeah? And you drive and you say, oh, that's Fort. Well, that must be about 7 meters where they built that new road. Then you have the Commonwealth coming to Delhi, and then suddenly everything is possible. So I've actually encouraged a friend who's an activist. I said, what you should do is you should make passes with a photograph, and you call it Commonwealth VIP person. And you give it to very poor people who are affected negatively by the Commonwealth. Because the moment you have a pass like that, yeah, you can do anything. You can bash down a monument, you can do this, whatever. Any excuse. Why? Oh, Commonwealth. Okay. Yeah? It's amazing. So, sorry, the question, I didn't answer your question. I think creativity, if you look at the work of Andy Warhol, you must have heard of him, where he takes photographs and he changes the colors and those kind of things. So people had long discussions about whether that is art or whether it's not art. Yeah? And at a certain moment in time, things get recognized as that it was actually quite interesting what he was doing, or pop art for that sake. And that you have a cartoon drawing with a certain texture, and that becomes a piece of art. Or Piet Mondriaan with his the blocks. Some people say, "Oh, my kid of 4 years old can paint this." Yeah. Well, that says more about the person who says that than about the person who created that piece of work. So I think creativity in history has never been copyrighted. So I think what is good in general, to give credits to people who deserve it. And take music, for instance. You probably heard of Eric Clapton and his big hits like Cocaine and these kind of things. Yeah. A lot of people think that he has actually written that song. Maybe you think that. Do you think that or not? Yeah, because you've only heard his version. So he made it famous. But the guy who wrote the song and who is actually, I think it's a better piece of music, his name is J.J. Gill. What? What's his name? Never heard of the guy. Yeah? So Eric Clapton, of course, because of copyright issues, he writes in his CD that the song was written by Mr. J.J. Gill, not by himself. Nobody reads it, that's okay. So for instance, if photographs, a couple of my friends are photographers, Dilip Banerjee, Ram Rehman. So for them, a lot of stealing is going on in photography. At least what people should do, if you steal it, mention it. Mention the name of the person who actually took it.
That is questions.
I think that's about it.
Yeah, boss.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Good time.